Okay, looking at branding now, which is an important topic within marketing. And you can read the quote there from Roberto. Yeah, you can read that. Chief Executive of Coca-Cola, and basically saying, yeah, burn down the factories so that they couldn't make Coke maybe for a year, but that's not a problem. They'd rather the value lies in the brand, the name Coca-Cola, the bottle, the shape of the bottle, the way they write it. So that's what's more important to them. So they could lose the factories, but they couldn't lose the name. That's the importance of branding. Of course, branding is not new. Cattle have been branded to denote ownership, and also sadly, human beings have been branded slaves to denote who owns them and who are the property of. And probably, I presume, when they're selling them on, that maybe some slaveholders had a better reputation for producing better slaves than anyone else, which is quite distasteful when you think about it. However, it just shows you, read this quote, Snoop Dogg, the rapper, and what is, he knows the value of a brand, because basically it's Snoop Dogg, and what he knew the brand was, it was gangsta, West Coast. And so when he went into reggae music, so he had a separate brand. And so Snoop Dogg was for his rap music, Snoop Lion was for his reggae music. So, even the rappers know the value of a brand. So what is a brand? Well, there's the words there. It's a name, term, sign, symbol, design, or anything. In other words, that you recognise that might not be able to read, but you walk past, you see the Starbucks brand, and you think, oh, I'll go in for a Starbucks coffee. No, originally, coffee is just coffee, and the coffee that Starbucks buys is probably no different from hundreds of other producers of coffee or sellers of it, but it's a Starbucks brand because it's more than just the coffee. There's a clip on the YouTube channel, and it's from the movie American Gangster, and strong language, so you don't have to watch it, but if you don't need to. But it's essentially how the Russell Crowe is the gangster, and someone else, I think it's Cuba Gooding Jr., is taking his drugs and he's cutting them up and making them less powerful. And they have a debate, to put it mildly, about this, because Denzel Washington is the gangster. He knows the value of his branded drugs. So it's a bit of a dark example, but you get the point, I hope. Now, on the left-hand side here, you can see a rejection letter to Robert Galbraith, who submitted a book to be published. And, the publishers get lots of books in, and I think it's a standard letter there, saying, oh, this is what you should do, blah, 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 all these things. Now, had they known that, well, do you know who Robert Galbraith is? Well, because you might know the author under a different name of J.K. Rowling. It's the author of Harry Potter. And after the Harry Potter books, she submitted this book, but she wanted to be judged on her writing as Robert Galbraith, a pseudonym, and not as J.K. Rowling, because as soon as they saw a book by J.K. Rowling, they would take it regardless of the quality, because they knew it would have a market. But they knocked it back because, obviously they didn't think it was good enough. Now, another publisher did think, and this was meant to be kept secret until someone broke confidentiality, but this just shows you how authors have a brand name. And I wouldn't like to be the person who wrote that letter knocking them back. And as you can see, some people take it to extremes. They have a brand, a tattoo. Harley Davidson, a powerful brand, Barcelona, Apple, the Beatles. So some brands, they're so desired that people go to these lengths. So can you think of any other brands it might be you've seen people with tattoos of that they like them a lot? I have my own UWS tattoo. Well, it's really pen on my back of my hand, but you get the point. So if you read down the right hand side here, it's about take whiskey, and it's just saying this. It's saying, like, you know, Jack Daniels, Old Crow. He's saying they can't tell the difference of them, right? But you tell them it's Jack Daniels and they'll say, oh, I prefer Jack Daniels. So what he's saying at the bottom there, they're not tasting the whiskey, they're tasting images. So take a look at that in your own time. And of course, with the value of a brand, you take a common product, you know, like a shoe, a training shoe, etc. But suddenly you put on it Barbie, One Direction, Angry Birds, or Minions, and that changes it, totally changes it, because that's what, oh, somebody, I want a Minions flip-flop, or whatever it may be. So, and of course, you can increase the price. So this is what brands are meant to do. They're meant to tell you about, you know, what do they offer, the price, the purpose, the quality, the performance here. You know, Jaguar, or in America, Jaguar, etc. Give you an example, Best Western was in America, booked first time in Florida, so Best Western, I knew the name. I thought, yeah, I can trust them. When I got there, so disappointed, because I thought this is not good. Was there a few years later, and I noticed that it was no longer a Best Western, and it was called Econo Lodge. I think that's the picture at the top there. Now, if I had been looking for a place to stay, I would not have been staying at Econo Lodge, right? But that's what fitted it. It is an Econo Lodge. That's the ideal description. It's not Best Western, so this is what it tells you about it. You know, Ronseal Fence Life, it tells you one coat. How many coats? One, and it's for life, so put it on. So that's their phrase is, it does exactly what it says in the tin. And if you go into Poundland, don't be looking for expensive products there, because that's what it's all about, cheaper products around £1. Of course, this is a quote from Phil, 2017. So a successful brand is one which creates and sustains a strong, positive and lasting impression in the minds of buyers. So strong, look at Levi Strauss, been around for years. Stella, I think it's Twinings, was it Twinings? I could never get that one. You know, Pepsi, Shell, these are brands that have been around for generations now. There's also a link to a story about the logos that they use and how the longest ones have been out there, so take a look at that. So if we look at a brand name, well, you know, first of all, the brand name, part of a name can be spoken. So in other words, IBM, Microsoft, Google, Coca-Cola, right? That's, you say it. And in fact, Google is now a verb. We Google things. So the brand name, spoken, obviously. The brand mark is different. That's a symbol, a design, a logo. So you see here, you know, Apple, Adidas, the Olympics, etc., Nike, they're Coco Chanel, visible. As soon as you see it, you know what it means. So firms will look for a combination of either the name and the mark. Now, a trademark is when you legally protect your name and who can use it in any way. So, for example, you can have a football strip that's green and white, or a royal blue. That, you know, it's fine. But as soon as you put something that indicates it's a Celtic strip, or a Rangers strip, or Liverpool, or West Ham, Man United, whatever, then you're in trouble, because that's legally protected. If you look down here, the Matty C's, Mac, you know, looks like McDonald's, they took action against this. Burger Shack saying no, you cannot call yourself Mac like that. So, and there's a link to the story about Rolls-Royce that was up for sale, and BMW and Volkswagen were vying to buy it. And essentially, I can't remember who won. Say BMW bought the factory, but it turned out Volkswagen then went in and bought the name. So BMW had bought a factory that made Rolls-Royces, but you couldn't call it a Rolls-Royce. And Volkswagen had just bought a name. So it's because it was complicated history of Rolls-Royce. So that just shows you, what would you rather have? A factory that can make a Rolls-Royce car, but you can't name it that, you can't even identify it, or the name. And most people would agree that having the name is more important. I think they came to some agreement whereby the Rolls-Royce factory made Bentleys and Volkswagen started from scratch. So there's a link to a story, you can read that up. And of course, whenever there's, protecting stuff, legal issues, this is one for the Beatles and Apple Music. So at the time, Apple was the name of the Beatles record label. That was their commercial interest. In the 60s, people knew Apple for being associated with the Beatles. Then along came Apple Computers. Now, there wasn't an issue because they said, look, you're in the computers, we're in music. There's no way people can confuse them. But of course, Apple Music, iTunes, etc. started a legal storm, and Beatles, Apple sued the other Apple, and once I think they won in America, but they lost in Europe, or vice versa. So it was the only people winning were the lawyers. So the end result was they decided, let's come to an agreement here about this. So it just shows you, you always have to protect your brand name, your legal rights. And of course, sometimes there are dodgy brand names where people try to pass off, and these are usually associated with the Far East, etc. So quite funny names. And of course, nearer to home, you have the retailers who will bring out products that sail close to the wind with the packaging, like Aldi and Lidl usually with their supermarkets' own brands. And so I think though the issue here is not the packaging but the content. So the idea is, if you've ever tasted Irn-Bru, there's no way you'll think you could confuse it for Bars Irn-Bru. And this is an advert from KFC, just showing all the different fried chicken places out there. Incidentally, not how that used to be Kentucky Fried Chicken, but now KFC, because the word fried, doesn't have good connotations. So what makes up a brand? Well, it includes, characters, colour, layout, design. We'll look at these in a second, how it's written. So if you look at these characters here, we've got the meerkats here, compare the market. We've got Colonel Sanders, who was a real person from KFC. We've got the Michelin Man, who was, his Latin name was Bibendum, I think, which means soak up the water. So a tyre soaks up the water. There's one here for a rabbit. No idea. I think that's Pets Are Us, Pets at Home, something like that. It must be for rabbits. So that's all I can think of. Of course, there's the colour, and the bright colours. So I think McDonald's seem to have changed from the red and yellow to the more delicate green here. But Google all the primary colours, very important here. If you look at Subway, that's, I think, that might be the Subway in Larkhall in Scotland, which is a different colour from everyone else for some bizarre reason. And this is about how Cadbury's tried to protect the colour purple. They wanted that to stop the Quality Street bar, and they lost. So they wanted to own that as their own brand, which you can't do. Now, of course, how you write the brand. If you look at Amazon, what does Amazon sell? It sells hundreds of things. It sells them from A to Z. So if you look at that, A to Z, and that puts a smile on your face, so you see that that's right, but a smiley face there. FedEx Deliver. So if you look at the E, if you look at the X, there's an arrow in there between with the direction. So if that's the indicate there, it's hidden in it. BMW, Bavarian Motor Works started out with airplanes, and that's actually a propeller against the sky, the blue and white, a propeller in the blue against the sky with the clouds. So, and then here we have NBC with the peacock, and the colour there. Down the left is Quicksilver, so there's their logo there, and their sister company is Roxy. And if you look, when you join them together, you have the heart. So two brands, one company, and it joins up. If you look at Pittsburgh Zoo, Pittsburgh at the zoo, I hope you can see it looks like the gorilla and the lion in the tree. Let's take a look there. And the Tour de France has if you see the man on the bike or the woman on the bike cycling away there. So if you can't see it, pause this and look carefully. Now, Toblerone comes from Switzerland, and it's in the city of Bern, and in the city of Bern is known as the city of bears, right? So it's natural that in the mountain you can see a bear. So if you can't see it, pause this, but it is there, trust me, the bear is in the mountain. This is just one Spartan golf clubs. If you look there, the swing of the golf, and it has a sort of Spartan, I presume, helmet in there. So, and it's like a head, a face. So, quite clever. So brands have meaning. So Adidas, as you all know, Adi Dassler, it was the father started it up. So Adi, he was his name, Dassler. There was a split between the sons, and the other son went off to form Puma. So there's in the same town two, global companies. IKEA, and it's IK is Ingvar Kamprad, the founder of it, and EA is the district of Sweden. So try and think what your name would look like with, your first two initials and where you come from. Across from that is Haribo, and that, again, I think the name is like Harry something from Bonn. Lego is Danish, and it's like, I think it's play and fun. Samsung and Spar also have meanings with their name, but you can look that up because I think I've forgotten. Well, not really, but look them up. So how do firms use brand names? Well, sometimes it's just total reliance on it. So if you look at this, Heinz beans, Heinz ketchup, Heinz, the company's name's everything, anything else is a descriptor. Other times there's a balance between the company name and the brand name. So a Ford Fiesta, a Ford Ka, a Ford Escort. So there's a balance here. Obviously Ford name stays, some the brand names drop off. And then there's a balance between it because we have here Kellogg's Frosties, so it's always Kellogg's Frosties, Kellogg's Cocoa Pops. Whereas Heinz, they just have the descriptor. Frosties is equal partnership here, and Ford has they'll drop the other brands, but they keep these ones steady. And in some cases, you'll have the brand name is endorsed by the company. So, for example, Kit Kat, Nestle's on there, but you don't see a Nestle Kit Kat. It's just there. So it's because they don't want to push it. Now, I can't remember if this is still accurate, but at one point, Marlborough, Miller Beer, and Maxwell House were all owned by the same company, right? They all owned by the same company, but they didn't think it was important. You needed to know this, so that each brand stood on its own. So it wasn't like Nestle, Philip Morris, Marlborough, Philip Morris, Miller Beer. It was just the individual brand name. So some cases you might not want to know the owners, other cases they might think it's important. So we're looking here at principles of brand development, and the first one we're saying is, look, what does your brand mean for customers? What does it really mean, right? Now all these companies have failed. Some have been in bankruptcy. Some have never come back from it. But at one point, they've all thought, yeah, we have a strong brand name. People love us. People value us. But that's not been the case. So you can mislead yourself about how valuable your brand name really is to customers. If it disappears, they would be concerned, but otherwise they're not bothered. Other point is here, decide which brand names can be stretched and how far. Now this is about Virgin. Now if you look at the left hand side, all these different ways where the Virgin Records, Virgin name has been taken out. Obviously Richard Branson doesn't own all these. Companies come along, and if he thinks it fits the values, they can use the brand name. So from Coca-Cola and vodka and trains and music and radio stations, etc. And it pointed out that they were going to be called slip disc, and so, but that would have been slip disc is funny when it comes to vinyl records, but not for it only works there. So a name that can be used all over the place. Now we also have to know when to develop new brand names. So for example, Disneyland Paris, it used to be called Euro Disney. And at some point someone thought, no, it's not Europe before Disney. So they turned it around, and it wasn't, so they didn't make it Disneyland Europe. They thought Paris is a better brand name than Europe, so Disneyland Paris. Marathons, for some of us in a generation, they're now Snickers, but we still think of them as a marathon. Sugar Puffs, because sugar's not good now, so it's now a thing called Honey Puffs, so they've changed that. The owner of Hull City Football Club in England, he wants to call them Hull Tigers, because in the UK, football clubs in the whole are either, City or United or Rovers or Town, etc. They're all pretty bland, whereas in America you've got the Jets and the Raiders and the Rams, more dynamic names. And so the owner from Asia, he thought the Hull Tigers, but the fans did not like this one little bit. And down the bottom there was a slimming chocolate called AIDS, and it was really lose weight with AIDS was the slogan. But what happened then was there was a disease out, and at the time it was called GRID, gay-related immune deficiency. Then they realised, no, this just doesn't affect the gay community, so it became acquired immune deficiency system. As soon as that illness was called AIDS, that chocolate was finished. And I think having a company, pharmaceuticals, called ISIS is maybe not the best. But if you look here, look at that phrase from the BBC. I've turned the group into a globally feared brand. Now I wonder, did they really know when they're using the word brand? That takes it to different levels. And this is just to show you how logos can be refreshed and updated. So it's the history of the Aldi logo, you can read that there. But you can see how it's changed, quite dramatic change at the beginning, Albrecht, then Aldi, then subtle changes as you go along. Now, what you have to be careful with is some brand names, they might be good locally, but they don't travel internationally, or in some parts of the world they might not be as appreciated as others. So you have to be careful when going global that your name doesn't cause offence elsewhere. So that's where the research comes in for not just a country, all over, every aspect, every region. And also in branding, we've got here, these are just it's like a ladder here. So you start off recognising the brand, then you're aware of the brand, then you prefer the brand, then you insist on the brand, right? And then you've got brand loyalty, and I'm trying to think if something comes next. Yes, it does. Brand advocacy, where you're saying, no, you're telling other people. So you're not just loyal to it, you're advocating. Now, the thing about recognition there is UWS was a merger between University of Paisley and Bell College. And at the time, a lot of people still will say in the Lanarkshire campus, oh, Bell College, and in Paisley, University of Paisley. But it's building this brand name isn't easy. It takes a long time. So, and what we want is students who are not just, loyal, but advocate, tell people, yeah, this is a great place to study. Oh, these are important branding. So I'm going to go into a bit more depth in branding here, so bear with me just a second. So brand attributes. So these are bullet points specific to the customer from purchasing the brand values, brand person, so all these things here. So I'm not going into this in too much depth, but look at brand personality, and it's what makes a brand. Now I think Paddy Power has a personality there. So this is for the golf tournament. They said, Tiger's arrived, hope his driving's been better because he just involved in a drink driving crash or something. So they have a car with Tiger around the golf course, right? So that's what they do, right? And if you look at some of Paddy Power stuff, they're outrageous. So, you know, you try and have a personality to this and what values they have. And this is why companies, we'll see later on in PR, they come out and make statements about things, whether it's about Black Lives Matter, whether it's about pride, whether it's about human rights, that's what they're about. Yeah, this is one you need to look closely for. This is when I subscribed to a guitar online thing, and if you read the first line, so you've decided to join Ultimate Guitar, and it didn't say I was brilliant, it used a different phrase. Now some people might think, oh, that's terrible, but immediately I'm thinking that's their brand, it's a personality, it's what they're about. We also have an issue with generic brand names. Now what happens here is some brand names, they become the generic brand name. So for example, you might go for an aspirin, but aspirin's a brand name. Only one company can call the product aspirin. Everyone else will just be something else, but we'll say, give me aspirin, and they'll give you this Sellotape, a Frisbee, a Tannoy, Hoover. How many people you say, oh, I'm going to buy a Hoover, but you don't buy the Hoover brand, you buy something totally different, but it's a Hoover. Is that a good thing for the firm? No, because you've just become a commodity. Now at the moment we Google everything, but at one point, if another company comes along that is better, we use it, we might still say, yeah, Google it. It loses its meaning. Now this one here is brand equity. So this is looking at, you know, back to the Coca-Cola one at the beginning, you know, all your factories burned down, but what's the name worth? You know, how do people think and feel and act with respect to the brand? So it's about the prices you can charge, the market share, the profitability the brand commands. The example here, when David Beckham left Manchester United to go to Real Madrid, or sorry, when he was signing for re-signing for Manchester United, they agreed his fee as a football player, but they then negotiated his fee as a brand. What was David Beckham's brand? And he has his own logo. What is that worth to Man United? And then it was about image rights, you know, that if they sell a t-shirt with his name on it, he gets a share. But when he went to Real Madrid, they said, no, you don't have them, we have them. And he said, yeah, fair enough. So there's the line there. If you could buy just the name, how much would it cost? You know, if you could buy the name Real Madrid, Manchester United, etc., what would that be worth? And this is just really what are the elements of brand equity, right? It's about the name awareness, it's about loyalty, it's about not the brand quality, perceived brand quality. Remember that thing about Jack Daniels and the other whiskey? They're not tasting the whiskey, they're tasting an image. So perceived brand quality. If I had millions of pounds and I might go and buy a Rolls Royce, I know nothing about cars. I don't know if a Rolls Royce is a great car or a Porsche or a Lamborghini, but it's a brand name and people would say, wow, you're driving a Lamborghini or whatever. But I could get in that and think, this car's rubbish, you know, give me back that Lada any day. So, and brand associations is, you know, if you imagine the James Bond situation, you know, the cars and all this stuff, what do you associate with it? And this one here is just to show you, if you look at this, what a good brand does, right? So then you've got the product, price, promote, all these things here, the core product, all the brand stuff here, but it's about the awareness, so the consumer's aware of it, what they associate with it, if it's memorable, distinctive, relevant, what are the benefits, look at this, confidence, loyalty, satisfaction, and for the firm, reduced marketing costs, increased margins, opportunity for brand extensions, you know how Virgin do that. I think we'll come later that Starbucks don't spend much on advertising because their brand is powerful. Again, slightly over the top here, but you know, this is how we measure brand dominance, how it's market strength and performance, the associations, the beliefs that people hold about it, and this is important, the prospects, how much can it grow, right? How much can you take it into new areas to be more successful? know, these are spoof brand names, obviously, you know, which is, you know, maybe it's recognition of your own name here, etc. The London Olympics there, you know, I think that's, I actually put one of these up here thinking it was a real London Olympics logo, but, you know, parody maybe, so at least it's publicity. So, to sum up here, right, branding's not new. We saw it with the cattle, the slaves, but it's a major part of marketing, right? You've got to understand your brand, you've got to understand what it means to customers, and you might have to rebrand, you might have to say, you know what, let's start again. And things like equity, values, loyalty, and brand personality, all critical elements. So this is a major element of marketing. We're only touching upon it, but it's as long as you know that the brand is everything. So thanks for listening.